Hello and welcome to lesson 17 of the Learning Guitar series. This time we start discussing right hand techniques, and in particular we'll focus on alternate picking, and in the future we'll look at legato and sweep picking, economy picking, etc. In my opinion, no one technique is more important than another. They're just different, and they might serve different purposes, or they might facilitate, the way you want to play. Each of them has got advantages and disadvantages, and we'll discuss them as we go. I'm actually going to discuss this from a little bit earlier, somehow, I don't want to say a beginner level, but just a brief, very brief discussion about, starting from the pick itself. Why? Well, because, different picks, by now they can come in different size, different shapes, and, so forth and so on. So, different thickness, okay? What should we use? Well, in discussing picking in general, I don't think, my experience tells me that there are no, rules. I don't want to open like a can of worms where I tell you like, this is done this way or this is done that way. Because there is plenty of musicians out there who kind of don't apply these rules to their playing and still achieve some fantastic results. So me telling you should all pick this way or that way, it kind of makes no much sense to me. If anything, hopefully this lesson will explain you the logic of things, as usual. And if you understand the logic of things, you will probably find what works for you. And that's the entire idea. Okay, so we have picks which have different thickness. Let's start from that. So in this case, I'm holding something which is 2 millimeters, and this is a very, very thin one. This is probably 0.5 or 0.7. And of course, there is picks of different size. This is like smaller, bigger, much bigger. And, as I say, you'll find what works for you. In my experience, personal experience, I tend to use very thin picks, like very thin, 0.5, 0.7, if I'm doing strumming work. So let's say acoustic guitar, literally like strumming work. So, that kind of thing. Especially if I'm playing guitar in a pop song or in a pop mix, because it gets you less bass and it's kind of more uniform as a sound. You get more trebles out of it. So it kind of tends to sit already better in the mix with the other instruments, okay? And, it just works for me. As I said, let's not make rules out of this. I'm telling you how I feel about it, but, it doesn't mean that you can use a very thick pick and do the same. But as you can see, the volume is much louder for a start, compared to, okay? And as I said, it's a thinner sound itself, brighter in a way, with slightly less attack, obviously. And it kind of works well for me when I'm doing strumming parts, okay? And of course, there is a whole range in between, 0.5 and 2 millimeters. I mean, it's everything in between. So you might want to try 0.7, 1 millimeter, 1.2, and see what works for you. If I'm doing, most of the time, I'm dealing with lead parts, especially if I'm playing jazz. In that case, I prefer to use a much thicker pick. Again, a bigger attack you get out of it. I like the tone of it. There is more bass to the notes. So especially when playing high strings. I get a darker sound compared to if I use a thin pick. So I tend not to like very much thin picks, especially on the top strings, Again, personal preference. And the reason I'm saying this is, say for example, you take a musician like Bob Mettini, and he uses incredibly thin picks, okay? And he doesn't use actually the tip of it. He has it on the, on this other side of the pick. by using EQ, he still gets an incredibly warm sound. And, you know, he started that way, he feels comfortable that way. As I say, let's not make rules. I'm just telling you in general what you can get out of it, and then you'll try and you'll figure it out yourself. Pick has got a lot of influence on the tone you're going to get out of the guitar. As we say, like a thinner pick, obviously you'll get a brighter sound and less bass, as opposed to a thicker one. Also, it kind of changes according to the tone changes according to if you're playing closer to the bridge, or closer to the neck. So you're going to get a more, let's say, scooped the meats kind of sound. If you're playing closer to the neck, as opposed to a sound which has more upper mids, a brighter tone, more twangy tone. I think that's probably would be a good definition of it. If you're playing closer to the bridge, compared to, so you get more low mids, more bass, a little bit less mids. Now let's have a look at the exercises I've prepared for you. First of all, let me show it to you. So as you can see, we have a PDF as usual with alternate picking exercises. It's 5 pages of it, which cover quite a lot of ground. I'm going to explain to you why these exercises, so that eventually you can, if you understand the logic behind them, you can actually create your own exercises. As you can see here, it says start every exercise with a downstroke and then repeat the same exercise starting with an upstroke. Also practice exercise in 8 and 16ths depending on what you feel more comfortable with, and then repeat the same exercise in triplets. Obviously, you know, to do this and to be very thorough, you know, probably would take hours, especially if you're just starting out with this. Nevertheless, you know, you don't have to do all the exercises in one go. I'm just going to explain the logic behind why am I saying practice starting with the downstrokes and then with an upstroke. Let's take, for example, exercise 1. Okay, very simple, very common, very known. You know, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you know, etc. The way it develops is simple as this, and then you move up a semitone. Okay, fairly simple, very common. Okay, now you might ask, why do I do these kind of unmusical exercises as opposed to apply directly alternate picking to all the scales and arpeggios that we've done? And that would be a legitimate question. The reason I rather separate it is we go back to the muscle memory and photographic memory we discussed in lesson 1. So, as I said then, and I'll quickly repeat now, I can probably walk and talk on the phone at the same time and pay attention to what's going on in the conversation. I could probably not talk on the phone and read a book at the same time and have an understanding of what's going on in the book and in the conversation. Okay? In other words, multitasking is not necessarily our thing. Okay? So when I'm trying to develop a new thing, in this case we're discussing alternate picking, I'd rather be able to focus on one thing at a time. So these left-hand patterns are easy enough to be to go into your muscle memory rather quickly, so you can actually focus on your right hand. If you apply these to scales and arpeggios, if you know them very well, then it's okay. That's what I would do. You know, so if I don't have to think of what my left hand is doing, I can focus on my right hand. Okay, but if you're developing with these lessons that I'm creating, probably at this stage, yeah, you probably know scales over 5 shapes in the entire guitar, so the first 15 lessons. But maybe they're still not part of your muscle memory, and in this case even photographic memory, because this has to happen, but you're not looking there anymore. During these exercises, you might want to start looking here at all times to see if what you're doing is correct. It's efficient, actually. That would be the best word. What you're trying to achieve is efficiency for what it is, the goal that you set up for yourself. If it's speed, if it's precision, whatever it is. As a matter of fact, speed is the result of accuracy. So if you're precise at slower speed, then it becomes easier to speed things up. So don't fall into the trap of trying to do these things fast straight away. Have a look. You know, one of the most common mistakes I see sometimes is this end jumping a lot and the arches that you're creating being too wide. Okay. So by arches, I mean that compass motion that happens when you're alternate picking. Okay. So if you don't look, you will never know that you're doing it. Okay, that's the idea behind. And very simple pattern. Okay, why am I asking you to do it starting with a downstroke, but also starting with an upstroke? Well, the reason is, the logic behind it is because when you're playing, you don't really want to be thinking about it. Okay, you want consistency. So it doesn't matter if you're starting with an upstroke, if you're starting with a downstroke. When you're playing, you just want to express yourself, okay? So you don't want to fall into the trap of having patterns. So everything is always starting with a downstroke. So the downstrokes are always on the beat, and the upstrokes are always on the offbeat. When we do triplets, you know, that goes out of the window. So getting used to also going up, down, up, down, up, down. But also down, up, down, up, down, up, down. What you're trying to achieve is consistency of volume, okay? And that's why sometimes like to do this on with a clean sound, it can be beneficial because you're going to spot straight away if your upstrokes maybe are weaker than your downstrokes or vice versa. You're trying to have a consistency of volume. As I said, when you have distortion, that dynamic range is reduced, so you might notice it less. You can even practice this stuff with the guitar unplugged, you know, with electric guitar. You don't want to sound... You don't want to sound like that. You want to sound consistent. Now, the fact that you're going down and up on the neck will kind of pose a question in terms of how do you want to approach that? Do you want to go angling, moving your wrist down there, so you're changing the angle of the pick at the same time, or use your elbow, okay? So you're going down and up. So this is the elbow, and this is angling the wrist. Okay, they're both valid, whatever works for you. Now, if you look at exercise 2, is basically the same thing as exercise 1, just like reversed. Okay, and this is more for you to practice consistency also in your left hand in terms of strength. But it's the same thing, right? Same turn up. And again, if you start with an upstroke, same exercise. I tend to go all the way up, you know, wherever the guitar leads me. So I start here and up here. Now, if you look at exercise 3, 4, and 5, they are the same thing. Most of these exercises are going to be the same thing. It's just in this case we're using first, second, and fourth fingers, so 3 notes per strings. In this case, 1, 3, and 4. So first finger, third finger, and fourth finger. When you did 4 notes per string, starting with the downstroke, for example, every time you change string, you're always starting with a downstroke because it's even numbers, right? Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So every time you change strings, you're starting with the same. If you start on a downstroke, it will always be a downstroke when you're changing strings. If you start on an upstroke, obviously it's going to be an upstroke. So up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. This doesn't happen when you're playing 3 notes per string, and that's when the consistency we're trying to achieve becomes important, because 3 notes per string, or any odd number per string, you have down, up, down, and now when you're changing string, you're starting with an upstroke in this case. So up, down, up, down, up, down. So you are also dealing with the change of direction. Exercise 5, 6, 7, they all deal with 2 notes per strings. Okay. So, and again, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. It also refers to the fingers I would like you to use. You don't have to. I mean, what I mean is, for example, the 1-4 exercise. What I'm thinking in my head is finger 1, finger 4. So it would be like this. Okay. But I know some people like to use first and third finger with that kind of stretch. Okay. I tend to see it in terms of wanting to, as I said before, wanting to develop the strength on all fingers. So, again, treat it as best for you in a way. So you have this 1, 2. 1, 3. 1, 4. And of course you could do all the permutation. 2, 4. 2, 3. 2, 3. I'm talking about fingers now. Huh? Second finger, third finger. And reversed. Or third and fourth finger. And reversed. So now that we've dealt with 4 fingers exercises, 3 fingers exercises, 2 fingers exercises in the context of alternate picking, the next logical step would be to practice alternate picking in the context of string skipping. So and that's where exercise 9 comes in. As you can see, the following exercises should be applied to all patterns presented in exercises 1 to 8. This is exercise 1. Okay? Now applying it in terms of skipping a string, so that you're also practicing string skipping. So instead of playing the second string, I'm playing the third string. Second string, fourth string. Third string, fifth string. Fourth string, sixth string. And I'm applying this to 4 notes per string. When I write apply to the exercises 1 to 8, I mean that can be done with 3 notes, with a pattern with 3 notes. And you should, because as we say, there is a problematic of the inversion of the picking pattern. 2 notes per string. We're starting with an half stroke. So basically what I'm trying to do with these exercises is to cover as much possibilities of what you can encounter when you're playing, so that when you're playing, you have a muscle memory in your right hand and a photographic memory that allows you to do that. That's pretty much the extent of it. Exercise 10 is kind of similar. It's not really string skipping. It's just playing the same pattern in group of 3 strings. So what I mean by that, again, we go back exercise 1 and first string, second string, third string. Then you're back to the second string, third, fourth string, third, fourth, and fifth. So you're operating at groups of 3 strings at a time, and you have something that sounds like this. And all the way up. Exercise 11 and 12, these are particularly important. They're going to explain you another concept. So the following exercises are designed for you to practice inside and outside picking. So as per the previous one, practice starting with downstrokes and then repeat the exercise starting with an upstroke. Actually, 11 and 12, as they're designed, as a matter of fact, they contain both. What I mean, and I'll show you it to me in a second. When you're ascending, if you start with a downstroke, you are doing outside picking on the way, ascending, and inside picking, descending. And the opposite, obviously, if you're starting with an half stroke. Now, just quick mention of what I mean by inside picking and outside picking. When you're playing alternate picking, sometimes you will find yourself, say, if you have two notes on two different strings, that if you start with a downstroke, you're attacking them from the sides, okay? So you're picking the notes, if those are the strings, you're picking them from the outside, okay? While inside picking, when you have two strings, means that you're attacking, your pick sits in between the strings. It's not on the outside of the strings, but it's inside. Okay, so if these are the two strings, inside picking means that you're doing this with your pick, while outside picking, you're doing this. Okay, that's the difference. And definitely you want to practice both the approaches, okay? That, again, when you're playing, it's not that you're going to be calculating when you're doing inside picking, when you're doing outside picking. It just happens to be in a way or another. So this exercise, kind of a little bit difficult at first. It's still 1, 2, 3, 4, but is operating over two strings. So the first finger, so in the descending pattern, you see it's all outside picking. But when you come up, it's because you start on a downstroke, now it's all inside picking. Outside, although it's only inside. I'm not sure on camera you get a feel of what's going on, but as soon as you tackle this exercise, which is exercise 11, you realize what I mean. The moment you start descending, you realize that your pick is operating in between strings, on the inside of two strings. When you're doing this, you're on the outside. And as you can see, the important bit is the consistency. As you can see, there is a consistency of volume, independently if I'm doing inside picking or outside picking. And of course, the same exercise, if you start with an upstroke, now descending, you'll have inside picking. That's starting with an upstroke, right? And as you descend, it's going to be all outside picking. Okay. Exercise 12 is the same thing. It's probably one of the hardest exercises that you'll encounter here. At least it is for me. Okay. Again, you're practicing not only inside picking and outside picking, but you're also practicing string skipping at the same time. So the arches you have to create with your right hand are wider, obviously. So this is definitely easier when you're doing it with outside picking, but as I said, this addresses very specific things. On one side is addressing inside picking, outside picking, at the same time is also addressing string skipping. Now, exercise 13, 14, 15, they start dealing with you playing alternate picking applied to arpeggios, let's put it that way. You studied arpeggios and you have sometimes one note on a string or two notes on a string. In this case, is one note per string, constantly. We start with group of 3 notes at a time, then we move group of 4 notes at a time, arpeggios with 5 notes, arpeggios with 6 notes. So, as you can see, exercise 13 has got 1 note per string, and because it's over 3 strings, if this is a downstroke, of course, this is going to be an upstroke. This is a downstroke. This is an upstroke, because it's an odd number. So that's what you have to be particularly careful about. In this case, I wrote 1, 2, 3 in terms of fingers. As I said, it's 3 notes. You know, you could do this. You could do this using first, third, and fourth. You could do it this way. It doesn't matter, Logic, understand the logic. I'm trying to play one note per string, like kind of an arpeggio kind of thing, but so that I'm challenging the fact that it's down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So this is the kind of exercise I'm doing, okay? And it's all alternate picking, obviously. Right? And once again, you might, in this case, you don't need to do, now I'm going to start with the upstroke, because actually the nature of the exercise already dictates that. You're already alternating. Right? It's down. If I think of the first note, okay? Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay? And you want to do this on all group of 3 strings for the simple reason that they have different thicknesses. So I'm going to show you the way I tend to do it. I tend to go up, then change the group of strings, come back down, change the group of strings, go up, change the group of strings. That's how I tend to do it. So that's when I change strings, okay? Same thing. Okay. Exercise 15 is a combination of exercise 13 and 14. So it's both ascending and descending. So you have something like this. And again, you change group of strings. As I said, these are very good exercises for when you're tackling them, your arpeggio studies. Exercise 16 deals with 4 notes at a time, so it's still kind of an arpeggio configuration, but implying the use of 4 strings at a time. So again, you could do it this way. You could do any combination you want, for as long as you get the point of it. And you can do it one direction, of course the opposite direction. In the PDF I just did it ascending and descending, so you have something like this. And again, because it's 4 strings, we're using different groups, so different groups of strings. First 4 strings, then the middle 4 strings. And the bottom 4 strings. You could do it this way. There's actually a major 7 arpeggio, as a matter of fact, right? Exercise 17, 5 strings. Now that's when things get obviously a little bit more complicated. So I designed it that way. Always alternate picking, right? And second set of strings. Exercise 18, 6 strings. So the pattern I designed is this, but it doesn't matter. It's just 1 note per string, and up and down the guitar. Exercise 19 is group of 3 strings. So you have this. exercise 20, same thing, this time applied to group of 4 strings. Okay, so the pattern. And continue up the neck. As you can see, the following exercise tackled the problematic of encountering a different number of notes per string. So the logic behind exercises 21, 22, and 23 are related to the scales you've just been studying in the lessons from 1 to 15. Let's take, for example, G in the shape of E. And you have 3 notes on a string, 3 notes on a string, 3 notes, 3 notes. Suddenly you have 2 notes, and then you have 3 notes again. Same thing, say the shape of D. 3 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes. So you have sometimes the scales or patterns you're playing, whatever it is you're doing, you might have different numbers of note per string. So far we always tackled something that was somehow very symmetric. Either it was 4 notes on a string, or sometimes it was 3 notes on a string, or sometimes it was 2. In the case of the arpeggio, maybe you use only 1. Now we're trying to tackle instead the situation where you have sometimes odd numbers on a string, sometimes you have even number. And because of the nature of alternate picking, that kind of reversed, as we know, if you are tackling a new string with a downstroke or an upstroke. So these exercises are designed to give you independency from that point of view, so that when you're playing again, you don't have to think about it. So the first exercise has 3 notes on a string, then 2, then 3, then 2. So you have this pattern, for example. So in terms of fingers, is 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3. So 3 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes, 2 notes. In reversing, you're actually playing 5 notes, because you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 5. Okay, so you have something like this. So your alternate picking kind of gets used to this idea that, in a way there is no such a thing as always starting on a downstroke or always starting on an upstroke. When you're playing, you might find yourself in all sorts of situations. Seriously, you really don't want to be having to think about it. So that's why these exercises are designed in this way. Exercise 22 is 2 notes on a string and then 1 note on another string. So it's closer to what arpeggios looks like. So say, for example, again, we go back to G in the shape of E. 1 note on a string, and then you have 2, then you have 2, then you have 1, 1, 1, and if you play the octave, you have 2. So this idea that you might have sometimes 2 notes on a string and sometimes you have 1. So the pattern I designed is 2 note, 1 note, 2 note, 1 note, 2 note, 1 note. Then again 2 because they're changing. Okay, and you keep going up and down. The third exercise, same kind of concept. This time we're dealing with 4 notes on a string and then 3. Okay, something close, kind of sometimes when we play chromatic kind of things, or say when we do pentatonics. The blues one with the added flat 5, where you have 2 notes, but then 3, then 2, then 3, then 2, then again 2. So in this case, the exercise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and then vice versa. 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3. I spend time, sometimes I kind of repeat myself, I probably do that often, in describing you not only the exercises that you find on the PDFs, more importantly, hopefully, you're understanding the logic behind them. Because that's the point of my lessons, not the exercises. The exercises are designed to achieve a certain goal. So if you understand what the goal is and the logic behind these exercises, you will be able to, not only to create your own, but when you're trying to learn something, if you identify the goal, you might identify the methodology how to get there. When it comes to alternate picking, I think the advantages of it is consistency. I mean, you have total control of the attacks of each note because you're picking each note. And also, like, it really helpful in terms of playing metronomically. So, this becomes kind of your metronome. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you're well and stay well. Until next time. Okay, bye.